Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate you being here, and we appreciate the folks online. My name is Susan Valverde. I'm Chief of Operations of Sylvan Learning, and I'm happy to welcome you here in my home state of Texas for the first of what we hope to be many panels and many information sessions and events that are hosted jointly by Sylvan Learning and the National Math and Science Initiative. So NMSI and Sylvan, I think this partnership is grounded in making sure that we provide resources and information for families and for educators to navigate all the challenges and all the questions of success in high school, in college, in career, and just success in life. And so we're really happy to have such a great warm welcome and lots of great partners to give you great information for your students. So here tonight, the other thing I wanted to say is a big thank you to the Girl Scouts of Northeast Texas. We thank you for hosting us in this beautiful facility. We are coming live to you from a STEM facility in Northeast Dallas, and we have been very impressed today to learn about all the wonderful STEM resources that the Girl Scouts offer girls. And so if you haven't looked up if you think you know what the Girl Scouts do, I would think again, I would check out what great offerings they have in STEM. So thank you for all the great work you're doing for girls as well. So without further ado, I'd like to get our panel on the road, and so I'd like to introduce Emily Levitt, our Vice President of Education, who has been an educator for over 20 years, 8 of those with Sylvan Learning, and she's here to share, to introduce our panel and to moderate tonight and to share wonderful information that we're sure you're going to find very useful. So thank you, and thank you, Emily.
Thank you, Susan. All right, thanks everyone who came to join us tonight, and thanks everyone who's watching remotely. I'd like to take a minute and just introduce everyone on the panel, and then we'll get into some questions about the college prep process and things that students should expect to know and do and be prepared for as they start college. So Rod, I'd like to start with you. Would you mind sharing a little bit about where you were coming from for college prep, a little bit about you and what you do in that arena?
Great. Rod Jackson. Senior Associate Director of Undergraduate Admission, and I also handle a lot of diversity initiatives, and I'm with SMU, and I've been in this field probably for maybe 17, 18 years. I know I look young, but I'm just kidding. No, I don't. Been told all the gray is wisdom. I'm like, that's just a new term for old. And I've also been on the high school side for a few years as well, so I have a really good perspective of both the high school side and the higher ed side.
Great, thanks. Michelle.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Stye, and I'm the Vice President of Teaching and Learning at the National Math and Science Initiative based here in Dallas. The National Math and Science Initiative, or NMSI, is devoted to making sure that our students and teachers across the country have access to and success in advanced STEM courses, with the goal of making sure that students graduate and then become STEM majors and then pursue STEM careers. And we use advanced placement as one of the measures by which we judge whether or not our programming is effective. And I'll be speaking a little bit more about advanced placement tonight.
Thank you. And our host, Ashley.
Well, welcome everyone to our brand new STEM Center of Excellence. We opened in May, and I would agree with you. If you said earlier, if you did not think you knew Girl Scouts, please give us a second look. We are the country's largest female leadership pipeline. And people think of us as cookies, crafts, and camping, but we are so much more. This campus is 92 acres filled with an outdoor learning, living laboratory specifically geared towards getting girls into STEM careers. We're bustling every weekend and during the week, also offering field trips to both boys and girls in all the surrounding school districts. And I'm the Chief Program Officer. I've been here 8 years. I also have one kid. I've gotten through this very daunting process of getting someone in college and finding scholarships. So I know a little bit about that perspective as a parent. Have one getting ready to go through that. I'm actually doing a college visit tomorrow with her. But from my position at Girl Scouts of Northeast Texas, I do feel it's my personal responsibility to get our girls very distinct experiences in job shadowing and college prep and career exploration so they can be very well equipped to go out into the world and become successful adults.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so our 3 panelists have a lot of experience in the college prep arena, but you are approaching it from different angles. So because of that, we'll mix up the format a little bit tonight. So we'll let everyone speak to their area of expertise one at a time. So Rod, we're going to start with you. So what can college-bound students do to stand out from the crowd when they're applying?
How can they stand out? They can all make 1,600 on the SAT. But we know that's not feasible, or that's not realistic. That question comes up quite a bit. And I think the best thing a student can do is work towards making themselves well-rounded in a number of different areas. There are a number of different things that we are looking at as colleges. Some schools may look heavier at grades, some may put more emphasis on a test score. Some schools will be test optional where you don't even need an SAT or ACT. So they're looking at your leadership, they're looking at your recommendation letters, they're looking at your writing. So really being well-rounded in a number of different areas so that you can appeal to a number of different schools that you're looking at that's a big key.
Great, thanks. So aside from GPA and test scores, what's the most important quality a student should have when they're being considered for admission?
The most important quality.
Or more than one.
I really, there isn't one. I'd have to say that there are multiple. We're looking for, of course, the academic potential and the character. We all want to think or believe that we are admitting students that are academically peaking at their point in their life, and they have a lot to learn and a lot to offer on the academic side, but we also want really good students that are going to come to our campus, that are going to get involved, that are going to show good character, that are going to make good decisions while they're on our campuses and not get us in trouble. And so the grades and the testing kind of talks to the academic side and often the recommendation letters from counselors and teachers, but the essay, the extracurricular involvement, things of that nature can really speak to a student's character and what they love and what motivates them and what they may bring to the table outside of the classroom.
That's great, thanks. What should parents look for if they're going to get an ACT or an SAT prep course to strive for that 1,600?
Oh my goodness. SAT or ACT prep testing, it really boils down to, I think, two things, and it's the time that the family has, and then also somewhat their budget as far as how much they're willing to commit to that. There are a number of free opportunities, of course, online, but when you're looking for a good prep course, you want to look at someone that's pretty reputable. You always want to ask a company, well, what is their success rate? What have some of their past clients gone on to do? How much have they raised a test score on average? And then, of course, it also depends on the student's calendar and the company's calendar to see how frequently you can meet with that company. And of course, many of them will have a fee, so that plays a big part of it as well.
True, yeah. So you've talked about a lot of different qualities and characteristics and experience a student should have when they start the application process. So what is the best way to know whether a student is ready? How can a parent know that their child's ready? Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's a scary, a scary predictor. You know, it's crazy being in admissions. People will often ask, well, how many students do you admit? And how big is your incoming class? So we may admit 6,000 students for an incoming class of 1,500. And they're like, well, what do you do? I mean, if all 6,000 commit, they're like, well, we've never had that problem, but if we do, we'll have to handle that when we cross it. So a lot of it is just projecting and hoping that you're hitting the right marks. I think ways that parents can know that their students are prepared is by their work ethic. And oftentimes that's from the college side, we look at what you do in the classroom as your work ethic. If a student says that they love math and they are gung-ho about it, and then we look at their transcript and they have C in Algebra 1, C in geometry, C in Algebra 2, either they really aren't good at math or they're not working hard enough if they say they love it. So work ethic is a big part of trying to figure out whether a student will be successful or not. The type of courses they take. if they struggle a little bit, but they're able to persevere through that struggle. That's a great thing. We don't mind seeing students struggle. As parents, being a parent and having gone through this process as well, I didn't like to see my own child struggle, but when they can go through that and come out on the other side, that builds character, that builds work ethic. And that's a big part of what we're looking for when trying to figure out whether or not a student will be successful on our campus.
Great. Can you give that lecture to my second grader? He needs some help.
It didn't work with mine. But
Oh, all right. Okay, good. Well, you have raised a lot of points that I know that Michelle and Ashley can speak to, so you teed us up very well, and thank you for that. So we'll shift over to Michelle here for a little while, and we're going to talk about elevating your level of rigor in high school to make sure that you can be ready and you can know that your child's ready to go to college. So let's start about talking about AP for a little bit.
Sure.
So for people who might not be familiar with AP courses, can you just share a little bit about what they are and what they're designed to do?
Sure. Advanced Placement Program is run through the College Board, and the purpose of their AP program is to provide students with a college-level educational experience. So the College Board offers 30-plus AP courses in its catalog, and schools that offer AP courses have teachers who have been through training and who have had their course syllabi and curriculum vetted, and students are the beneficiaries of having that kind of quality control process. At the end of an AP class, students may choose to sit for what's called an AP examination. And this is a nationally normed test. Students take it from across the country, sitting together on a single day. And if they are able to earn a qualifying score of a 3, 4, or 5 out of 5 points, then they potentially can get college credit, depending on the policies of the school that they're interested in. Even if a student doesn't make a qualifying score, we still see a lot of evidence that they are able to be successful in getting into college. And maybe you can speak to that as well as persevere and get that 4-year degree, that they're more likely than not to be able to handle that challenge because of the experiences they've had in their AP course. So that's a little bit about the AP program. I mentioned in my introduction that NMSI, my organization, uses AP as a way to support teachers in schools who are looking to elevate instruction in their schools. And the test helps us measure whether or not the programs and services that we use to support teachers in delivering that instruction is effective.
That's great. So we know AP courses are rigorous. And we know that there are 30 that children can pick from, depending on which ones are offered at their school, and some schools do offer a lot. So for students who are very eager to start padding their high school resume, it's very easy for them to load up on a lot of AP courses. And that may or may not be a good idea, depending on how much your student will be overwhelmed. So can you talk a little bit about finding that right balance of enrolling in AP courses, but not to the point where you will have a nervous breakdown?
So our recommendation is that parents and students are in close conversation with their school counselors. And one thing that they might think about, especially as you're looking at your 8th grader or your 9th grader, is to really think planfully about what the next 3 or 4 years looks like and what kind of career path the student wishes to pursue. The counselor can do a really wonderful job helping to direct students to take appropriate AP classes based on that student's interests and aptitude, as well as career planning in advance. So we do say the first recommendation is to be in close communication with counselors and with the AP teachers in the building. AP Central, which is the College Board's AP website, also has a lot of great tools for students and families who are making decisions about what AP courses might be interesting to them. So we always always recommend that students who are at the beginning stages of thinking about which AP classes to choose, to go online and to do some research about the different courses. Part of the tools that they have on the website are to match courses with potential career. So students can see, oh, if I'm interested in law enforcement, maybe an AP psychology class might be something useful. Or I always say that AP statistics, which develops statistical literacy in our students, is always a great course for students to take so that they can be literate in statistics and analyzing data. So again, just be in close conversation with your counselor, do your research, and then don't think that you have to compete with the student next to you. Just because your friend might be taking 5 classes doesn't mean that that's the right choice for you. So be true to your interests, be true to your passions, and seek out those courses and resources that are going to help you move to the next step.
All right. So Rod, you'd mentioned earlier that you do look at writing, and writing helps speak to who the voice of the student and a little bit about character. So Michelle, writing, I think, is an area of interest for you. It is for me. It's something that's very near and dear to my heart. So how can students be ready for that level of writing that they're expected to perform in college? And is it very different from high school, and how so?
That's a great question. And I am an old, perhaps wise English teacher. Wise. And I have had some deep experience teaching both at the collegiate level and at the high school level. And the difference between the two writing experiences from high school to college can be a bit of a shock for students, a little bit of whiplash. At the high school level, generally, and I'm painting with a pretty broad brush here, but students are used to writing about personal experiences, writing about opinions, doing some expository writing, lots of summary, and a lot of that is tied to what you might see on state assessments, for example, which makes sense for why schools would be promoting those modes. When students get to college, they're going to find that writing assignments are really tied to several items. One is critical thinking. The writing asks students to solve problems or to take a position and develop that position through supporting evidence. Or research-based assignments, they should expect to write across the curriculum. They're going to write in their math class, their science class, their English class, their history class when they get to college. And that might be a different experience than one they've had at their high school class. Research suggests that students are not ready when they get to college for the writing experiences they're going to have. The last National Assessment of Educational Progress suggested that upwards around 75% of students 12th grade students did not score at the proficient level in writing. So that's a sobering statistic. And I think anything that parents and students can do at the high school level to really make sure that they are writing frequently, getting practice, planning their writing as opposed to drafting from the muses to the computer to the teacher's desk. They want to be planful in their writing and think about multiple drafts. Not writing on the little screen, but definitely having different kinds of modes when they write, either longhand or on tablets, or sometimes screens are not a bad thing. I'm not suggesting that, but giving themselves different options for planful writing and thoughtful writing and different variety of experiences with that.
Yeah. Students like to be one and done with the draft.
They do.
Right, but in college, that's not how it goes.
Probably not going to be most successful.
No. All right, no, probably not. All right, so we're going to turn a little bit and talk about leadership and extracurricular activities. So Ashley, we're going to be over to you.
Okay.
Why are leadership skills important to develop at a young age?
I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier. It's so critical that we know now to kind of adopt that growth mindset philosophy with kids, and don't teach them to be able to fail forward and get that grit and resilience to try things. That, coupled with the confidence you get when you maybe go out and try something new that you've never done before and you failed at it and then you try it again, that gives you unbelievable confidence, which we believe in turn gives you exceptional leadership skills. And it has to be progressive. It can't just be one and done. So that's why at Girl Scouts we really try to weave through leadership qualities of building confidence and character and teaching our girls empathy, and to go out in the world and fight for what you believe in. And that's very much embedded all throughout our curriculum that we've developed, even our STEM curriculum. We want girls to experience things in the world that may not have experienced things at home, and it empowers them, and that all drives leadership and it really enhances the leadership opportunities girls get.
Could you give us a few examples of activities that the Girl Scouts offer to foster leadership?
Absolutely. One of the best examples of that is our higher awards. You may have heard of the Gold Award. That's the, you've heard of Boy Scouts, Eagle Scout. Well, this is a very stout equivalent, if not so more elevated program that girls go out into the community and they really are empowered to take on a very stout, sustainable community action project. And my daughter did this herself, and the leadership growth she got out of it was unparalleled, because it was like her own project. She had to come up with a business plan, do a budget, go speak in front of people. It's upwards of 80 hours, and so that's one example. Another thing that we do for our high school kids is called the Girl Scout Leadership Institute, and that was it's directly formulated to get girls thinking about college choices and careers. So all throughout the summer, our girls have the opportunity to go meet with, corporations for job shadowing and mentorship. In addition, we partner with other companies to do career exploration panels and offer them college prep services. All of that builds leadership in a girl, but it does have to start at a very early age, K through 12, and it really does need to be progressive.
And might I add, we enjoy seeing Gold Award recipients as well.
Well, thank you. I love hearing that. Good. So SMU is an incredible partner for us here locally, so we're proud of that.
Good. So how do extracurricular activities really broaden a student's understanding of the world outside of the classroom?
I think it gives you, global advocacy is really important, making sure you're tapping into diversity. We have big diversity goals. We want to make sure all girls get that. And when girls go through and are surrounded by people that may not look like them or talk like them or come from the same background, they get empathy. Another thing that is very important to us, you can go across into our leadership center, and we have the United Nations Sustainable Goals up there. And that's all about global advocacy. All throughout our curriculum, we're wanting our kiddos to take a look at what's going to make the world a better place. How do you kind of have that embedded in your character, where you're meeting with different people and you're learning about different people, and you understand that it only makes you a better person. You don't have to have the same opinions, you don't have to look alike, but you really all have to come together. And when we do that and we model that as adults for kids, it sure does make the community a better place.
All right, that's great. So this next question is kind of an age-old question. I feel like college-bound students have been pondering for decades. So maybe, and I think all three of you probably would have a good opinion on this. So if you can answer it, this would solve a huge college-bound mystery for everyone. So is it better for a student to have in-depth knowledge and experience in one or two areas, or a broad experience in many areas?
So I'm coming from a parent and then what I see our girls doing. And I think in my purview, it depends on the kid and what the kid can handle. I think if you are, I've seen a lot of kids who have just lots of very disjointed community service projects, or just seem to be getting hours and grabbing at stuff. But when you can pull all that together and spend the same amount of hours on something like your Gold Award that really does move the needle in progress, that's gonna really shine and make your kids stand out. What was your opinion on that? Coming from admissions?
Coming from the higher ed side, I would say it is very individualized. Yeah. You will have those rock star students that can be expert generalists in a number of different areas. But that's unfair for us to expect a student to be broad, to have a broad, they're 17, they're 17, 18. How much did we do at that age? Yeah. I probably wouldn't be admitted. So if they have focused in on one or two or three things that they really love and and placed a lot of time and energy into that, I think that speaks just as highly as that rock star that is able to handle a large amount of activities.
That's great.
And from the academic angle, I again, to reiterate, helping students find their intellectual passions, what they're interested in studying. AP can certainly help focus that if you're not trying to collect AP credits, but really honing in on that which is going to inform your future study and your future career path. I think certainly we do advise counselors and teachers and administrators we speak to help students find their academic path by focusing in on what is interesting to them, what they're successful at, and what they're passionate about.
So I have one question that I would like to ask all three of you. If you could tell parents, what is the one thing that you wish parents knew about the college prep process that a lot of them might not know?
I'll start.
Okay.
It's going to be okay.
You stole my line.
Yeah, it is going to be okay. I think there are so many unbelievable colleges out there, and you can't get set on just one. You can't get so set on your kid going to this top tier school because maybe they won't be happy there. As parents and educators, and from my position, it's our responsibility to prep you as much as you can to give you those unbelievable experiences. But really it boils down to they're going to go to a great college and they're going to be okay. I mean, I think that I came from a place of I was so panicked about where my oldest was going to go to, and if she didn't hit those metrics and markers, I was so disappointed. But she's at an amazing school right now, and she's in the perfect place for her. And I think that every college offers that. So it's going to be okay.
I'm currently going through this process with my senior in high school, and probably the best advice I've gotten, and one I'm struggling to follow, is relax and enjoy the process. Yeah.
And I think I'm going to share that opinion that you have, in that I may take it from a little different angle. Yeah. Don't be educational snobs.
Yes.
And what I mean by that, and I'm speaking to myself as well, this is therapy for me. Because I have a son that's a sophomore in college, and I have a daughter that's a senior right now. And oftentimes we do want the best for our children, right? You want to send them to a school that you think will set them up for a successful path in life. And we often have a certain vision of what we think that road looks like. And it may not include school XYZ, because you've got to go to school ABC. But that path, it's very wide, and there's a lot of different ways to get there. And if we as parents limit our children as far as telling them which schools they can and can't apply to, versus being a partner with them and just helping them work through that process, I think we're not doing them a service, even though I know we're paying the bill and we still have a say-so. But we still have to work in conjunction with them and not shun them for any of the choices they make, because there's a lot of noise out there already that they're having to deal with on that side.
So all of you are currently or have gone through this process.
Yes.
And so I'm curious to know how many schools each of your children applied to, and why that number.
Okay. Shall I start?
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
My oldest, he applied to, I want to say, 4 schools. They were mainly here in Texas, except for one was in Ohio, and I was like, what? Okay, whatever. And he knew that he wanted to be close to home. He knew he wanted a smaller environment. The high school that he attended, as well as some of the elementary schools, were all smaller environments, and he knew he wanted that small school, that intimate environment. My daughter, she has applied to 4 schools, but her search was a little different because she was approaching it from an athletic side. So thank God she has now received a national letter of intent to play, but it's in another state. But that search was a little different than the academic search.
Yeah.
My daughter applied to 5, 1 out of state, 4 in-state. She was looking for a mid-sized to smaller university, although she did apply at the University of Texas as well. It's huge here in Texas. She was concerned and interested in music and wanted to make sure that the places she applied had a great extracurricular offering for music. So she was very concerned about lifestyle and what are the additional services and experiences that the school provided for her to thrive as a well-rounded individual. So where can she play the flute? It was important.
Yeah.
So.
My daughter, who's a sophomore in college now, applied to 3 out-of-state schools that are very close by, and she got into all 3. One of them, though, she didn't have quite the qualifications to get into, so it was really interesting. She fought really hard to get in that school. She met with the director of admissions twice and really showed them that she was serious about it. She did not pick that school, but it was a really good learning experience for her to understand. I don't have the scores and the grades to get in, but I'm going to show them that they would love to have me. And she did that. That was a tremendous learning experience. My younger daughter, who's a junior now, will probably apply to 8 schools all across the country. She's a different kid, and I'm letting each of them form their own path. So.
Awesome.
Yeah. I do have a family friend going through the process, and I've heard from several parents that we are applying to colleges. And so how much involvement would you want parents to have? How much did you have in your experience versus so when do you dive in and when do you back off?
I can take this one if you want. I have definite rules that
Can I go and sit over here?
Yeah. So
hear this.
and this is just my internal advice, I want my kids to do that. Now, I have a rule that when we spend our spring writing essays, and I do work with coaches to make their essays, you can all go online and find out whatever school you want, what the qualifications are. They're all a bit different. One school might want you to put your volunteer hours by year, another school is wanting you to get it by week. So you can do all of that legwork starting their junior year in the spring. After I make my kids, the day the application opens, the day they sit down at the dining room table, I sit next to them and I'm proofing to make sure, because I don't want them not getting to school because of a grammar mistake, but I make them do it on their own, and they do it the day the application opens because they've already have their essay written and complete. I make them do all the scholarship applications too. They write all their scholarship essays, but I do check to make sure there's not a giant mistake happening, because it does affect if they put in something not smart. You don't want them to do that. That's my method. So.
I too sat at the dining room table next to my daughter as she was inputting things to make sure that it was done correctly. Yes. It does feel a little high stakes, doesn't it? And as an English teacher, I did support her in her writing, although she, this is their path. You have to, it's not my essay. So coaching myself not to use the we.
Yes.
This is hard. And making sure that my fingerprints are not heavily visible all over any of the work that she was doing. This is her life. And so, but yes, there have been moments where I was at the dining room table making sure the deadline was met.
Yes.
Awesome. Oh my goodness. Great, thank you. Do I need, I guess I need to share as well.
You're in the hot seat now. Yeah.
I see. I get it. It's really, it's a pressure point in their life, and it's a big decision the students are making. The professional side of me always says, we love to hear from the student. That's who we're admitting. We're admitting the student. And we do often, we'll have parents that will come in and they'll walk up to the desk and they'll say, we're here for our campus tour. And we're like, can we get the student to come up and introduce herself or himself as well? And as professionals, we give all of this advice on the do's and the don'ts and what you guys should or shouldn't do. And then I had a senior, and we went through the process and asked me if I followed all of my own personal professional do's and don'ts. No, I didn't, because it does. It is really hard. So I understand completely how parents will want to get very involved in the process. But at the end of the day, when they come to our campuses, we look at them and we treat them as young adults. At that point, they are starting their adult life. And they're responsible for everything they do. We communicate only with the student unless the student gives you all that power to speak to the university. They have to actually submit something to us in writing because of FERPA rules. So you want your child to be prepared and be able to do things on their own. So the more you place in their hands in the beginning, the more comfortable you will be once they leave. And it's hard. It's extremely hard to sit there and say, well, I'm not going to proof that essay. No, give it here. I'm going to proof it.
Yeah.
But at some point, we've got to turn over the reins to them and let them run as young people. That's how they become young adults. So
Yeah, definitely not easy.
it's definitely not easy.
No. Okay. Well, I would like to switch over to Q&A now, if we could. We have a lot of questions from our online audience, and I would love to hear from folks here in the in-person audience as well. So let's start in the room. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask the panel? There we go.
I'm wondering what advice you might give a student who is trying to decide whether they should take the SAT or the ACT or both, and how would they make that decision?
I'll dive in. Typically, we ask students or recommend that students try both. Try both the SAT and the ACT. There may be testing components or testing styles that work better with one of the other tests. And we always encourage students to try both tests at least once, see which one they were most comfortable with, which one they've done better on, and then go from there as far as additional tests that they take.
Okay, great. All right. Oh, one more. Okay.
So we get this question a lot in the center. Students come up to us and say we would do great on our SAT or the ACT, but our GPA isn't all that good. We have a lot of community hours. Our LORs are great. Is there a secret breakup of percentages of what colleges look at in terms of what percentage of the acceptance criteria is SAT or ACT? What is AP, pre-AP courses, GP, and all that stuff?
As far as a breakdown, most schools are looking at students, especially some of the highly selective schools that I'm sure you all's children will apply to, are going to look at about 6 or 7 factors. Of course, grades, test scores, extracurricular involvement, that all-important essay that you guys are going to help them construct, recommendation letters, the type of courses that are taken plays a big role in that process, grade pattern. For the more selective schools, and most of the universities, it's still very much an academic review. So it's typically driven by the academic side. So grades, testing, curriculum, recommendation letters, things of that nature. And then you have somewhat the subjective side, so essay, resume, things of that nature. We try to look at them fairly equally, but in all honesty, most universities are still, it's started and driven by the academic side, and everything else kind of bolsters that student's application.
So I'm going to switch to some of the online questions to mix it up a little bit. And Anathea, this is a question for you. So the question is, does Sylvan offer free practice tests for the SAT or ACT or essay workshops?
We offer all of those. You can contact your local Sylvan Learning and ask about taking a free ACT or SAT practice test, and then schedule a follow-up consultation to review the scores against colleges of interest, and then talk about plans for college. And then, yes, to writing. We have an excellent writing program that supports kids grades 2 through 12.
It is a good one, if I do say so. Okay, here's one more from online. When is the best time to plan for college? When do we start planning?
So,
I can speak for NMSI. Our recommendation is for students to start thinking about their academic path as early as middle school. And that helps with appropriate course selection and helping students identify where they might be interested in pursuing and choosing the kinds of courses that will help get them there. Certainly, having those conversations in high school isn't too late, but the sooner you can start thinking about what courses are interesting and for you and good for you to think about as far as a long-term strategy is. We do think that 8th grade is not too early to be having that conversation.
And we're having conversations here at the STEM Center from K through 12 on, like, you know, career exploration and college prep looks incredibly different for a kindergartner than a 12th grader, but we're trying to engage them in meaningful ways where they can see what careers they could have through kind of different, you know, STEM topics. And so I think if you do that progressively and kind of have a dialogue with your kids kind of all the time and expose them, and we start our college tours with 6th graders on. We have very deliberate programming that we want kids to get on college campuses, not just so they say like, oh, I want to go to this college, but they kind of get a sense of like, this is a possibility. The majority of the girls we serve are low to moderate income, and we want to get them starting to thinking that they can be and do whatever they want to be. We also take a responsibility to help our kids. On our website, we have scholarships that we also want to help our kiddos with. So we kind of dabble a little bit K through 12.
Okay, that's great. We actually did have a follow-up question that ties nicely to that is,
okay,
how do you find scholarships? What's a good place to look for scholarships to apply for?
They're everywhere. I mean, my daughter got a ton of scholarships her freshman year. She didn't have the great grades, but you have to put the work in. I mean, you have to really research. If they have a specific passion, like your daughter playing with a flute, they might be some great scholarships for that. If they excel in leadership and community service, there are so many corporations out there that give kids significant money and dollars for doing significant community service projects like the Gold Award. I think Toyota gave 16 of our high school girls 10 grand one year for their Gold Award projects. So they're out there for everything, and you just have to really research and be creative in your searching skills. We have a lot on our website. Most high school counselors' office have pages on their high school websites where you can just go. So your high schools will know tons of resources. So like you were saying, be in constant contact with your counselor on that.
And I'll add to that as well. There are, you have College Board has sites, FastWeb has sites. You can just type in scholarships into a search engine and it'll pull up a number of different things. There are several large national organizations, Coca-Cola, Dale, Ronald McDonald Charity House. There are a number of different things locally as well. Same thing here. My son applied for one through the Shriners organization in Dallas, and it wound up being an oratorical contest. And
that's amazing.
And he loves to speak, and it worked out well. So there's big, there's small. One piece of advice I will give: students often think, well, if I apply for 3, I should get all 3, right? No, the more students apply for, the better their odds will be at gaining one of those scholarships, because they are competitive processes as well. I'm sorry.
I was going to see if you wanted to speak to the FAFSA, and that parents should have that on their radar screen.
Yes, the FAFSA, free application for federal student aid. And on the college side, one of the things we always like to make clear is that academic scholarship is very different from need-based aid. Academic scholarship will be based upon what a student has done academically in the classroom, and they're based upon their grades, their testing, extracurricular things of that nature. The FAFSA, free application for federal student aid, is totally based on you all's income. So the Department of Ed pretty much calculates your income and comes up with a number called an EFC, and this is what they believe you all can afford to pay to send your child to school. And then they send that number to the different schools that your child is interested in, and then they compare that against their total cost of attendance, and whatever is remaining is considered your need at each individual school. But they are 2 totally separate processes. Scholarship, totally based on the academic side. Financial aid, totally based on need and does not necessarily bring in the academic side.
And I do feel compelled to talk a little bit about you can earn college credit for AP courses. So that is a way to potentially save some money.
Okay, any questions from the room? Switch back to the present folks.
So I'm a junior in high school, and I take a regular English class, and I make an A in it. And my friend is in an AP class in junior English, and he makes a B in it. When you're looking at that in the admissions process, do you consider the difference in the rigor, or do you look more at the grade?
That question comes up quite a bit, quite often. They'll say, is it better to make a B in an AP course or an A in a non-AP course? Well, it's best to make an A in an AP course. Oh, okay. Sorry. Sounded better in my head. I guess it wasn't delivered so well. I want to go back to something you mentioned, and it really comes down to what the student does well, what courses they're interested in, where are their strengths. If a student takes AP Physics, and we all know that's a very rigorous course, and they make a C in it, that's still a C, and we see a C. So we really have to look at each school and each student in the context of their school and what the school offers. So making that B in what you said, English, or an A in a non-AP course, I mean, that's still an A in a non-AP course. Now, the school may give more weight because of one being an AP course and one not being an AP course. And we do want to see that students are pushing themselves academically throughout the process. So curriculum does play a big part. But if it gets to the point to where we can see, or it's bringing down an entire GPA because they are just overextending themselves with AP courses, that doesn't look favorably for a student either. So you really want to stick with the stuff that they are good at and they know that they will enjoy taking a class in.
We have an online question that actually relates very well to what you were just saying, so I'm going to skip to this one. It's from a student, and the question is, do the amount of AP classes I take matter if I want to get accepted to a good college? The APs proposed to me for my junior year do not relate to my career at all, so should I still take one?
Again, that depends on how that student feels they will perform in that course. I guess I can use a personal story in regards to that question. My son attended Talented and Gifted Magnet. And there, part of the curriculum is that they just have them take a ton of AP courses. And he's a writer. He loves to write. He would be happy. And that's what he's studying in college, and he has taken off there. But he also had to take computer science. He had to take physics. He had to take stats. He had to take all kinds of courses. I think those courses really are good as far as preparing a student for the type of rigor they may face in school. But if it's bringing down the entire GPA, which it hurt his GPA, it hurt some of his chances as well overall. So no, don't just take them just to take them. Take them if you have a deliberate reason for taking those type courses.
And one of those reasons might be, to your point, seeing what the college experience potentially is going to be like. So for example, I don't know the student situation, but if the student is interested in math and science, and the counselor is saying at the junior year, take something like AP language and composition. Given our conversation about writing and the preparation that students might need for developing those really high-level writing skills, that might make sense for a college-bound student to be thinking about, how does this class prepare me to be successful in a variety of classes in college? So that would be the only qualification that I might add is be strategic in the course. Don't just take the courses because they might look a certain way on a transcript.
All right, thanks. Any more in the room before I dive back into the online well?
My son has, he's been diagnosed with high-functioning autism and severe ADHD. However, I would still like for him to go to college. Do you have any advice or anything that I should do as far as like preparing or resources? I don't even know. He's not your average kid, so I don't think that it's going to be an average or normal process for him. So what advice do you have for me?
I think there are a lot of colleges that are popping up across the country that I've heard about in the last 2 years that are even that are encouraging kids to come to their campuses. They may not have the same degree program, but they have living learning communities where kids with a range of special needs and circumstances can come together and have a college experience. I know it's kind of a new trend, I understand. I don't know if you have anything about SMU.
Yes, we do. On our campus, we have a Learning Enhancement Center. And in that Learning Enhancement Center, you have free tutoring for any subject you're having trouble with. There's a writing lab, there's a world languages lab. And then we also have a learning differences specialist that works out of that office, that works with students that have different types of learning differences to serve as a go-between between that student and the faculty members on campus to kind of help with any kind of additional assistance the student may need outside of the classroom. And we recruit at some of the schools that actually that cater to students that have learning differences as well. So yes, it's very possible, and it's just a matter of finding the right fit for your child.
Sure.
When preparing for the tests, like SAT, ACT, whatever it may be, as far as like right now he receives accommodations in school, how do I talk to the school counselor? What do you do to get that going for those tests?
I would start with the school counselor, who's going to be your first advocate. And if your student is being served by other departments in the school, talk to those teachers and those department chairs. They can also give you some resources, but the counselor should be able to help you with accommodations if your student qualifies.
And the ACT and SAT both offer really great accommodations. I know that the ACT will let you chunk it up into 5 different days and do 30 to 45 minutes. You have to have the notes from your doctor, or you can get extra time. So both, you have to prove that it's a need, but both have great accommodations. And you do not have to have, a lot of universities don't take your 504 to give you accommodations in college. And I found that there are amazing accommodations in college that you don't have to have your 504 follow you. You just have to you know about the resources, meet with them, and get your doctors to be a part of that process.
Exactly. Just to add to that, you can submit documentation of a student's learning difference, and that's something we review throughout the process as well, throughout the admissions process.
Okay, great. All right, I think I'm going to do one last question. And Rod, this is probably for you. How do you look at schools that weight their GPAs versus schools that do not weight their GPAs?
Many universities will recalculate the GPA, and not all, but many, will only look at the core areas of English, math, science, social sciences, and world languages. So even if there is weight in the GPA, we would take it out, restructure it on a 4.0 scale, and that's the GPA the student that we use as the student moves through the admissions process. Okay. Now again, we look at the curriculum totally separate, and we do want to see students pushing themselves with AP or honors, college prep type courses. But we typically will restructure the GPA whether the school has a weighted or unweighted anyway.
Okay, so you undo the weighting.
We undo the weighting.
Yeah. So when you are looking at the high schools that the students are coming to you from, are you aware of the academic rigor of each high school, and how do you judge that rigor?
Having a relationship with each of the schools is a big key. But there's no way we can have a relationship with every single school across the country. So often we have to refer on counselor calls, counselor relationships, and the profile that we receive from the school. So every school will submit a profile to us letting us know how many AP courses are offered, average scores of their APs, how many test takers they have, their college going list on some of the things of that nature. And it gives us a breakdown of each school's grading scale, what they count as an A, B, C, and D. And for those schools that we aren't as familiar with, we typically will rely on the profile and any connection we have with the counseling staff at that particular school.
Okay, great. All right, well, we are coming upon the end of our time, but before we wrap up, I'd like to just thank all of you for coming today. I think we've learned a lot. I've learned some new things too. And if you have one final bit of wisdom you want to give the crowd, this is your opportunity, either as professionals or as parents who are also going through the same experience.
Just encourage your kids, encourage them to take risks, be bold, be innovative, encourage them to be themselves. It's a long journey, and just love and support them. Give them, you being here tonight and listening in, obviously you're taking a great first step. So just carry that along the way and be proud of them.
That's a great
Such a mom thing to say.
Such a mom thing to say. I echo everything that Ashley said, and to just see your school as your partner in this journey with your child, and make sure that you're in good conversation with your students' teachers and school leadership, so that you're working together to make sure the students have a great experience.
Yes. There's two last things. One, try not to stress your children out by making them or forcing or making them take things or do things that aren't comfortable for, well, I shouldn't say not comfortable, because sometimes comfortable is not a good thing. You want to push them outside the box. Try not to stress them out during the admissions process. And then the second thing is, your students will apply to a number of different schools, some really good schools, some schools that they may not get into. If they don't get into the school, it's not an indictment on you. That doesn't mean that you're not a great parent. That doesn't mean that you didn't prepare them well. There's just only so many spots at some of these really big household name schools, and not everyone can be admitted. It doesn't mean that they don't believe that student can't be successful at the school. They just have so many spots available. And that does not mean that we don't like your child or that you are a failure as a parent. It's okay. There are other schools. It will be okay.
It will be okay.
It will be okay. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, everyone online. It's been a pleasure having everyone today, and we appreciate you tuning in.
I'm Anathea Simpkins, and I'm the Director of College Prep Programs at Sylvan Learning. And I just want to thank everyone here with us in Dallas and all of you who have joined us online for our first Pathways to College event. There will be more, so stay tuned. And I want to thank our partners at NMSI for helping us in organizing this event, and our incredible panelists for lending their expertise. Thank you so much. This is my area of passion, and I was just overjoyed to hear you share all of your wisdom. And then again, a heartfelt thank you to the Girl Scout Center here and to Ashley for sharing their incredible space with us, and the entire team for helping us organize everything here today. And for those of you in the room who entered our raffle, and those of you online, stay tuned for more information about who won the raffle, because it might be you. Thanks, everyone.